I think I'm already through it. I had to go to
I'll make the announcement to get us started here.
He said when she lived in Washington, bathing city, she was in Cuba.
You know what?
She would go to Cuba, Mexico.
That will always be the devil.
She actually took some pictures in Cuba.
I see that one.
Who lives in there, who like that, who that's.
Oh, but
You got, that's the text, yeah.
where'd you get your purple ones? I love it. The kids ordered it someplace, I tried it on Amazon, I don't know. I went to see.
Oh, see the one in
free
Florida?
ones, they're so tight.
What does she do?
Like this is. So I gave them the grand on 16 and fit her perfect. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And so,
He seemed to be pretty.
Tried to. We wanted to go right for everybody every time.
There's a reason. Another one I wrote. And, they didn't do a pretty good job.
But, we appreciate your work.
Appreciate all your effort.
Leslie said even 2 days before her passing, she was still there.
So what we're gonna do, when the service is over, you all just stay seated, let everybody walk up and pay their respects. And then we'll close the door and give you promise. And then I'll lay on everybody to start, and then
That's his purpose.
is that volume good for you? Is it, you need to run it up a little bit more? Okay. I think that's about what it was. Is there anything else you need, water, you have tissues, anything else you need? Okay.
You got a flag
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome all of you here today. We're going to be starting the services here in just a moment. Just a few quick announcements. If you have a cell phone or any sort of device with you today, you might just check to make sure that's either off or on vibrate. Also, the services are streaming live on YouTube and will be available to watch later, probably today, I would say, on our website at hastingsfuneral.com. So anybody who's not able to be here, you can pass that word along. So again, thank you for being here, and we'll be getting started shortly.
Hello, everyone. Welcome and thanks for coming. Many of you probably don't know who I am. I'm Curry Jr., the son of Curry, and the eldest and only grandson of Betti Farrior, who I only knew as Omi. I just learned her middle name today. And that's probably how she would have wanted it, because she was always Omi to me, and if you don't know, that's German for grandmother, and that's how she preferred to be called. Either Omi, or as my mom will later say, Mom. She was never Betti. And maybe to some of you, she always had a nickname or something like that she would call you. That's just how she was. Anyways, thank you all for coming. I just want to share a little bit, a little scripture, and then I'm going to open us up in prayer, and then I will read another scripture, and then I'll introduce a video, and my mom will come up and speak. So that's kind of the brief order of things. So, we all know Omi lived till a ripe age of 94, and she lived a long life, a life full of meaning, and a life that we should all envy. And so I just want to share something from Hebrews 12:1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. And if you could say anything about her, she ran her race with perseverance up until the end. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together with friends and family to celebrate the life of Betti Farrior. She impacted our lives in many different ways, some ways that we may not exactly know until we think back upon them. Deep ways that we will carry with us for the rest of our lives. Lord, I just want to thank you for her life. Thank you for her being my grandmother. She loved me more than I'll probably ever know. And I thank you for that. In Jesus' name, amen. Oh, actually, I gotta read it. Let me read the scripture that is going to introduce this video. It's from Ecclesiastes, and many of you all have probably heard it at some point in time. It was made famous by the song that's going to be in the video by the Birds. Anyways, for everything, there is an appointed time, an appropriate time for every activity on earth, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to uproot what was planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to dance, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to throw away stones, and a time to gather the stones, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search, and a time to give something up as lost, a time to keep, and a time to throw away, a time to rip, and a time to sow, a time to keep silent, and a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace.
I'm Leslie, I'm Curry's wife, and I was not Betty's first choice to do the eulogy. In fact, I wasn't one of her choices. Jim Lovejoy was her first choice. Ed Moore was her second choice. And so with the way COVID, you know, we just decided to go with me. And I think she will be happy about how I honor her. And she would call me her, not her daughter-in-law, but her daughter-in-love. To everything, there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die. I titled this eulogy, I've Got to Go. All done. Wow, 94 years. Betti, as you guys all know her, Omi as her grandchildren knew her, and Mom as we knew her. You know, not everyone gets all 4 seasons of their life, but Betti did. And as you can see from the pictures, they're all very different seasons. You know, these past few days, I really gained a lot more knowledge about her and her from some of the stories and just some of the seasons that were kind of incomplete. She was the daughter of a large first-generation immigrant family from Hungary who came to live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She had many brothers and sisters, and she was the family translator. She loved languages. She also had a gift with playing the piano. She learned to sight read at age 5. I only know about this season of life because of the stories and through some of the pictures. And I wanted to share something I got last night in the memory section on the Hastings website from someone who did know her during that time. Her name is Joy Robinson. She goes, I want to share a few of my memories of my Aunt Betti. When I, Joy Gross, and my twin brother James were born, Aunt Betti was 15 years old. Actually, 6 of my aunts and uncles, including Betti, ranged in age from 9 years to 17 years. Uncle Frank was 24, so I kind of grew up with older brothers and sisters rather than aunts and uncles. Going to grandma's on Sundays usually meant that I would have to stand by the piano and sing with Betti while she played the piano. Not my favorite thing to do. Songs like Gray Squirrel, Swish Your Bushy Tail, and Playmate Come Out and Play With Me. She also played a song called Midnight Train to Heaven. Then there were those Friday night drives to the lake. And of course, what did we do? We sang. When we got to the lake, we'd have Hungarian coffee. I don't know what made it Hungarian, but we would play cards by kerosene lamp. There was no electricity and water was from the well. It was a wood stove, icebox, and kerosene lamps. Aunt Betti lived with us, Marie and Tony, for several years. During this time, she taught me a lot about girly things, makeup, hair. And Aunt Betti was the original Dr. Pimple Popper. I can hear her say, oh, that one's ready. Oh, God. Oh, she taught me about shopping. If it wasn't on sale, she would wait week after week until it was. Lots of memories. I'm sure Grandma's smiling now that all her baby chicks are home. I'm sure that Aunt Betti was warmly greeted as she was the last one home. And then I'm sure the 5 sisters got back to their bickering with each other, just like they had never separated. I love you, Aunt Betti. Till we meet again. Joy Gross Robinson. I didn't know anything about that season except for the story she told me, but I didn't know that one. The next season would be her marriage to Bill. This took her away from Milwaukee, a season where Warren would be born in 1957. Warren sitting on the front here. 5 years later, Curry would be born in Atlanta, where they would finally settle down in Morgantown. Bill landed a job with the Bureau of Mines. I think it's called the Department of Energy now. So many memories come from all of the times in Suncrest neighborhood, and some of you guys, blessed neighbors, that we've gotten to personally meet, because when we come home, we get to meet all of you guys. And you guys have been truly special to us. They will tell me a story or two from the old days. We will all chuckle. It's fun. So sifting through all of her stuff, we began to see what a full life she had. Some that we weren't aware of. When we pulled out some of her pictures, and one of the ones that we have displayed over here, Warren looks at it really good. He goes, "Now I know why Dad married her." She was beautiful. She was truly beautiful. We found artifacts like a certificate of appreciation from Hill's department store in Star City. She loved working there, and she was quite good at her job. She even did security for them catching shoplifters. I loved her stories. I think she was so good, I think they had to put it into that. When we would come into town, she would take us to Hills and show us off to all the people there. When she finally retired, it was age 67. I heard from Pat Kress what an amazing retirement party they gave her, and they actually roasted her. So I am looking forward to that VHS tape that Pat's going to provide for us to see. We also found, going through her stuff, we found costumes, and the costumes matched the pictures, and you could just put it all together. All the Christian fellowship she went to, all the core groups of friends she had, friends from all over the country, and they would travel to all these places. She apparently was quite the character, and we have the costumes and pictures to prove it. So those who know Mom know that Mom is quite the innovator and good repurposer. The things she can make and what other people think is garbage. Oh, I brought along an example.
Yes, I have some.
Anybody else? And we also have some. We will have these in the back if you would like to take one home as a souvenir. Because one of the things when getting rid of her stuff, it's really important that we honor her by making sure that nothing is wasted and goes to places and to people that need it, because that was her life ministry. The things she could fix and redesign with her sewing machine. I packed up the sewing machine. It's probably her 4th sewing machine. I will replace the old one that she gave me a while back. She could make things out of an old comforter. She would sew them into little pillows. And you guys all know Betty. Her back was like this. And she needed all those different sizes of pillows so she could sleep at night. And she had to have them all just so, as all of us who have cared for her in these last days know, to make her comfortable. Something that's in all the pictures, Mom's piano. Something we can't take with us, but one that holds some of the fondest memories. It was at the piano that Betty brought people together. She played at home for us, and especially loved to play at the Christian gatherings. Mostly Christian songs, but then on occasion she would slip in some humorous songs, and she loved to make up verses. Banging away on Lulu, and she would go on, and we would have all the sorts of different verses, and she had a lot of fun with it. I got to know Mom most during her last season of life. We had some special times together, going through old songs and nursery rhymes she knew as a child. There was one that she taught me, because I didn't know it. It was older than even the songs my mom had taught me. And she would act out her part, and she would get her cane at the time. This was before she was in a walker, although she did do it once for me in her walker. And she would get her cane, and you could just see her going back in her mind, being a child again. And she would kind of pace, and like she was walking. And she would start to sing, and her part was, "Here comes Dr. Ruby, Ruby, Ruby. Here comes Dr. Ruby for the rent and cents to the I.O. Now I had to do my part, and I would say, what does Dr. Ruby want? Ruby want, Ruby want. What does Dr. Ruby want for the rent and cents to the I.O.? He wants to marry a nice young gal, a nice young gal, a nice young gal. He wants to marry a nice young gal for the rent and cents to the I.O. And I would go, take one of us girls, us girls, us girls. Take one of us girls for the rent and cents to the I.O. And then she would go. She had the meanest look on her face and really loud. It would scare the dogs sometimes. You're all too black and dirty, dirty, dirty. You're all too black and dirty for the rent and cents to the I.O. And then I was supposed to pretend to chase her. We did this. She loved this. When she heard back, she couldn't do it, but as soon as she was able to walk around again, she found me and we did it again. Betti was fully engaged, as you can see, even in her old age. We thought we would lose her when she broke her vertebrae back in 2020. And it's really a God story how God provided for her to these last couple years. God had prompted me to retire from teaching just prior to COVID starting, to be flexible, because I knew not only her but my mom was getting up in age, and so I needed to be flexible to travel. And then she hurt her back. She broke 2 vertebrae, and so we needed to come to Morgantown often. We would come more regularly, and her caregiver, Joanne, made it happen. She made it possible for Mom to stay after her rehabilitation, and she was in rehab for a little bit, and we would come. She was in a wheelchair, and she rallied back. She rallied back to be able to walk with a walker. Thank you, Joanne, for helping her and helping us to do that for her. Many of our conversations during that time were about why she was still around. She was ready to go. She says, it's time for me to go. It's time for me to go. And I said, no, Mom, you're still too engaged. You're still too full of life. You're still engaged. And she was very frustrated about Warren not helping more because she really wanted to pass at her house. That was her desire, to live in her house until she passed with Warren there to help her. Joanne Beard and later her daughter Kelly, which I just found out today, Kelly came in November, just at the exact time when I started taking care of my mom and wasn't able to come here. And that's a God thing. So Kelly was able to help Joanne. And this is her last season. And her wish was, and I wanted to fulfill it, to die on her own terms. And you know, in the age of COVID, you get in the hospital, you're going to die alone. You're not going to be with anybody. It's going to be horrendous. She wanted to die at home and not alone. And Joanne and Kelly made that possible. You know, this time when she called me, Joanne had her up to the phone. In my last conversation with her, I could tell she was in pain, and she says, I've got to go. She had been saying this for 2 years, but this time when she said, I've got to go, I knew it was different. I knew this time she really was all done. She told me how she had outlived all of her brothers and sisters, and she said again, I've got to go. It all came together for her when Warren did his part. She needed him there that last night, and Kelly told me he had been there putting the blanket on her like we had hoped he would. She needed Warren, she needed Joanne, she needed Kelly to be there. And I want to say to each one of you guys, thank you. Well done. You did it. You made it possible for her to be in that house and to die with not alone. She was there with the one she loved, and she did not die alone. When she said, I've got to go, she knew what time it was. A time for every purpose under heaven. It was time to die. Her time under heaven was done, and it was a new time to begin, the time where you leave this body to be with the Lord for eternity. Just this week, my daughter was on the phone with me, and she was telling me how her daughter, Riley, Betty's great-granddaughter, was learning a new word. It's called all done. After she ate her meal, she would say, all done, and then she knew she would get something better. Of course, that would be ice cream. Well, Betty is on to something better. She's all done, and we know it's better than ice cream. We're gonna have people share. That's what she wanted. That was one of her other, she planned out how this was going to go. My husband's going to come up with her good friend Heidi for many years. They're gonna sing some songs, and we're gonna have opportunities for everyone to share.
Just before I'll just throw a couple of words out there. Thanks, I want to thank Leslie for putting together a funeral. It's amazing how I've thought about this moment, and Leslie's thought about it for, I don't know, years and years. With what happens when your mom dies, what happens when your mom dies. And it happened, and you know, it was still a shock somehow. But anyway, honey, thanks, honey, for putting together the talk and the videos, and you know, getting us all organized. Appreciate that, and I know she does as well. Mom's watching us. This is the hotel that she lived in, and she's watching us now, and I know that. I still talk to her. I still talk to a lot of people. You know, not really talk, but you know. So a friend at work called me, and she said, and I was telling her, my mother just had such high expectations, and you know, on us, our world with our mother was just trying to live up to some expectation that was as high as the limit. And you know, she'd yell at us a lot. And we deserved every bit of it, I'm sure. But you know, that was my remembrance of her. But one thing I said to her was like, well, you know, I still talk to my mom. And she goes, well, that's good, because now you get the last word. So I'm not gonna take advantage of that, Mom. I know you're watching. And, there's a lot I could say, but she knew we loved her regardless of how much we you know, we bickered at each other. And you know, Mom was a 1 to 10 in 5 seconds, and I just knew to wait for it. The song we're going to play, it's a real short song, but when she was in her final days, and she wasn't doing very well, and I could tell on some phone calls. And this was one song that she'd always get on the piano and play. It was a super simple song, there's only 4 lines to it. And she'd play this in 100 other songs without a sheet of music, without a chord, without anything, from pure memory. Hundreds of songs. And it hit a drop of a hat. And if you could sing it, she would play it. But this was one that I would play to her with my guitar over the phone. Just because I knew she'd remember it, and had a little time.
Well, this is really going to be kind of impromptu, you
Yeah.
call that? Thank you, Betty Boop. Did you know she was called
No.
Betty Boop? Yes. My husband dubbed her that. Okay, so Betty Boop requested this song, and this is one of the songs. Can you hear me? Sure, microphone.
No, it's just for the YouTube thing.
It's on, but it's so
Yes.
far away.
Oh, okay, it does have audio.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Now, that's what you want there?
yeah, I don't.
Okay. My
We'll
husband,
be
that,
fine. I'll sing with you.
I remember last night.
It's good to be free.
Oh, that one was more, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It's good to be free.
No earthly kingdom has a hold on me. My heavenly Father, He knows me. So praise the Lord. It's good to be free.
Heidi has a
Do
song
you
that she's
want me
gonna
to do
sing.
that song still? Okay, that's
If
the
you,
song.
if you don't,
I
if the
will
voice isn't
try
up
it,
to
I
it,
will-
then
yeah.
we'll just,
It's just the
you
voice
can
has
describe
been
it.
rusty, but I will trust this, that it will come across. This is a song we used to sing many times in our gatherings, and it's actually sung to each other. Okay? And I won't do this here, but many times if I felt led by the Spirit, I would just go to the people, take their hands, look into their eyes as I'm singing the song. I'll do my best without any piano. How could anyone ever tell you you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you are less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you that you're anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you are less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
So my mother's greatest wish was that people take an opportunity to share, their memories of her. I think my mother in her mind, had a big picture of a big funeral with a lot of stuff in it. And as a lesson I learned recently with this experience was, if you want a big funeral, don't wait till you're 90 to go. So, my mother was really good at planning and a lot of details, but I don't think she thought that one all through. So, anybody that'd like to share, if you can come up to the podium, please do. Go ahead, Glenn, I see you kind of come on up. And just, sometimes you go to funerals and you hear people just kind of lauding about, oh, how wonderful this person is, and then you kind of realize, maybe I'm in the wrong funeral, because I do that. So go ahead and just share from your heart, Glenn, and as you feel led, just come on up and share something. It really was her biggest wish.
My name's Glenn Gallagher. I met Mama Betty in Warren back in '07, one of the feeding programs here, and we quickly became friends. And shortly after that, she started calling me her third son, which is an honor to me, because I never really had a mother. And oftentimes I would tell her a dirty joke, and she would laugh. Then she would say, "You brat kid," and then she'd smack me with a
She liked dirty jokes.
And when Warren injured his arm in '09, I started cutting the grass for Mama Betty. And I'd say about maybe 8 years later, she had her driveway redone with new gravel. And she was at the back door, and I said, "Mama Betty, I like your new driveway. That means I'll have less work to do," because she wanted me to cut the driveway first. She looked at me and said, "No shit." She recently told me about a radio station in Pittsburgh called 89.3. They plays classical music, and I listen to this every day for a little bit, and I always think of Mama Betty when I tune into 89.3. She was a wonderful woman, and I will truly miss her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pat Kress. I told Warren and Leslie most of the stories the other night when I stopped there. But I have to laugh at the poor planning on the 94, because Mom was 93, and you don't expect too many people at her funeral, which she had in September. The younger people she worked with, they showed up, but all her friends but two were all gone. Family's all gone, and my brother said, well, now you get to be the matriarch. I says, no, I am not going to be the matriarch. There will never be another matriarch. In that generation, how it worked, everybody came to dinner, you know, and did all that. That's not me. I'm done. But you're right, because there was hardly anybody, you know, her friends. But the couple things I didn't tell you was, you reminded me about the pillow. She made me pillows for between my legs, for my back. And when my mother had to have back surgery at 90, she was 91, it didn't work. I brought that pillow to Mom, and I have the cover still, because I brought it back now. She did a cute little print, flannel print over that for the pillowcase, and I still have it. She was so creative, like you said. Some things we laugh at, like the hangers, but she was very creative and very intelligent, and she did love languages. She could pick apart a word, and we would get so much out of that spiritually. And the other thing I forgot was, I'd tell her, Betty, you smell so good. She says, that's Farrior's fancy. I says, what is Farrior's fancy? She says, oh, I take a bunch of my perfumes and I add them together. That's what she would do with her perfumes. So she was, and it smelled good. It would never work for me. I could imagine what that would smell like. And then the song, she had a classical song that was so beautiful that she wrote. And I'd ask her when I'd go there, before we'd sing the spiritual songs, I'd say, play for me that song that you made up and never finished. It was just put you in a place, a higher place with God, a higher level. It was just beautiful. And I have no idea of that song, but it was.
I remember it, but you know, I don't know if she ever wrote it down.
She probably never wrote it. But anyway, she was very giving. She was, and I told them this, when we roasted her, she would go down to Uniontown and she would bring us clothes. Blanche, her other friend, she'd bring her family clothes. She'd bring me clothes because I was raising 3 kids. Until finally we had so many clothes, I said, Betty, you're gonna need to take some of these back because we had so many. But what amazed me is when she was working at Hills, and even later, but at Hills, this truly amazes me now that I'm older. She would get off work and she would come to my house for Christmas or Easter or whatever special occasion. And I did some baking on the side for people, and I did different things and caterings. She would help me make pizzelles after work, late at night. And I'd say, Betty, it's awful late. You want to spend the night? No, I'll drive. And now that I had cataracts and everything, I'm thinking, how did she ever come out here, stay till late, and drive herself home? And plus to go to Uniontown to get those clothes. I wouldn't have wanted to do something when I got older. But anyway, so she was really very generous, worried about you. There's some things I never told her because I knew she'd be a worrywart about it, and she'd be calling me up every minute to tell me how to do it. When she came out to bake, there were cookies that she's never made, and she would tell me how to make those cookies. But anyway, we had so much fun. She was so much fun, and if I was going through a problem, she'd always have a good word for me. You know, she would have. And when she worked at Hills, there's so many times she'd tell me stories. She liked the dressing room better because she had more time with people. And God would give her a word for those people. And some of them were right on, as I learned later. But she loved working, let the Lord use her to encourage them or build them up. So that was in her for years. Very generous of spirit. And then I forget what nickname she had for her doll from a long time ago. She had a nickname for that doll. And one time when I was going through a bad time after my divorce, told me to come to her house, she had something for me. And she had sold that doll. I think it was $80 she got for that doll. And I cried and cried and wished she hadn't done it. And she said, no, I want to bless you. And she said, I wanted to bless you. And I cried like a river because she would give up something so precious to give to me. But anyway, she had a very generous nature and she was hilarious too. It's all right. Thank you.
The stories I have about dear Betty are numerous, and I really don't even know where to start. And I don't have anything in front of me organized. But what I want to say and reiterate what Patty said, she, in my own words, I would say she has had a heart of gold. She could be so, what shall I say, demanding sometimes or whatever, and yet you knew underneath the real person. And also you could be yourself around her. And like one of my friends in Mary Lovejoy in Vermont just told me the other day, she reminded me that she had told Betty recently, you gave me my voice. And I said she did mine too. Meaning, both of us were so timid in our lives, we didn't ever speak up to keep the peace. But that's something you had to learn with Betty. You spoke up for yourself. And you had to push through sometimes. She took it, she was a good sport. And like I say, she and I traveled so much to our spiritual gatherings. I counted, including West Virginia, there could have been more, at least 10 different states that we went to. North, south, east, and west, truly. And the stories we always had, and the retreats, once a year we had a Labor Day retreat, and she always helped organize some of the talent show on Sunday night, and it was always hilarious. And we had so many good friends. Like I said, we went everywhere. And she was a good traveler, she was a good companion. Never had really any real arguments with her. I remember one time when we would always have the cassette players at the time, and we had Handel's Messiah, we had Enigma, we had all sorts of stuff. And I remember driving her car. One time she let me take her arm, we would change cars. And we were on, I think it was around 80, 90 on the way towards Massachusetts, I think. And I had a AAA book on my lap. And I was doing all the driving, and here's this music going, and there were some drums, and with the Lion King too, the opening. And I would be on driving and drumming on my lap, if you can imagine. And she did the same thing, sitting next to me. And when we had like the Messiah choruses on, I mean, it was just full blast in that car, full blast. It was just enormous, some of the stories. I don't even know where to start. I'd be here all day probably. The funny things that we did together. And I do remember one time, and that's kind of telling on myself a moment, during Robert, my son's second marriage, also fell apart. I got so angry at my then daughter-in-law, something was happening, and I was so upset. It had to do with this business. And I stormed into Betty's house, and I felt so free with her. I went in her kitchen, and she didn't know what was going on. I am just pounding my fists against the refrigerator in frustration and anger, and throwing myself on the sofa like a little brat. And finally she said, what's going on? And I was able to tell her. But that's how free you could be with her. And I think that was a great thing for a friendship to have, to be yourself. And she would be, sometimes I'd yell at her, she'd start screaming about something, and I'd say, shut up, you know, and that gave me my voice. And she took it, she calmed down, she was just fine, no problem. Anyway, I don't know to go on, but there's so much I could tell you guys, maybe in private, it might be easier to try to digest. So, Betty, we love you. You will be greatly missed. Thank you.
Yes.
Kelly Beard Doyle. I was caregiver for Betty. I just asked Leslie if there's anything, kind of late in the game, but I asked Leslie, is there anything I can do for you now or in the future? Hurry, Warren. She said, well, I thought maybe you could speak. I'm not much of a speaker, but I feel as much that Betty has given to me that at least I could do this for her. So as I'm listening to all your stories, I'll try not, I mean, I jotted some things down, so I'll try not to babble too much, but I feel that Betty had an impact on so many people, and from one realm to another, I can't even, I mean, it's a huge, I mean, just so many people that I don't even know. I mean, I've been blessed to know her for just a little over a year, and she's reached my heart in a deep way. Just for some simplification, I guess, the postal carrier, I had spoke with him and her name came up, and this was in another area of Suncrest, not where she was, but he saw her name on an envelope and he said, Betti Farrior, I know her. And I said, oh, you do? And he said, yes. He said, I delivered mail for her for 25 years ago, or for 25 years, something to that effect. And he remembered her as Sister Lily. She played piano, and I guess that was her name.
That was real. Sister Lily.
Yeah, Sister Lily White.
Sister Lily White. So I went to her and I asked her about it. I said, do you remember your postal carrier? And I mentioned his name, and she said, yeah, he delivered mail for me 25 years ago. I mean, she doesn't miss a beat. Her mind was unbelievable. I mean, the entire time I knew her, that's real impressive, because I don't remember some childhood rhymes, but she would just rattle them off and make jokes about it too, because some of them are kind of weird. Why would Humpty Dumpty? I don't know. You know all the nursery rhymes, but she spoke often of family. Grandchildren, Curry, Leslie, Warren quite a bit, and the grandchildren. She was just happy to know about the birthday. She remembered them. She'd say, this person is this old today, or 3 months, great grandchildren. So that she held her family close at heart. One thing she couldn't understand was why she lived so long, why she outlived all of her siblings. And I said, there must be a purpose, and I think her purpose was to continue educating and entertaining, because she entertained me, and she educated me. Not that she was just here for me, but just the impact that she made on so many people's lives. Glad she spoke of you, and I know she was, you were dear to her heart as she is yours. As for the jokes, pretty rotten sometimes. I was kind of surprised to hear some of the things that came out of her mouth, but it was funny. And I have in turn passed on those stories, which I will not today. Like I said, her mind was sharp as a diamond, with speaking Hungarian and German. She really gets involved in people's lives. She's asked me lots of questions, followed up with things, and she was a blessing to have known for the short period of time that I did, but a great impact.
Warren, you want to say something real quick? And I'll follow up with that. Try to keep it.
I know. being reminded not to ramble, and ramble is something I had a little in common with mother. If you let her talk for an hour, she might talk for 2. But anyway, it's been a strange ride. 4.5 years ago. Years ago I decided to do a lot of walking, and I would take walks, very long walks, and one day I was crossing the road, and I got hit very hard by a pickup truck. And I don't remember it. I remember waking up in what I thought was a motel, and then I looked around and thought, oh, this isn't a motel, this is a hospital. Anyway, I got hit by a truck, and I had so many broken bones. I'm not going to go down the list of all broken bones I've had, but I realized that I possibly could be still alive because of other people's prayers, because I could have easily died. Hematoma here, hematoma there, broken ribs, broken in pieces, broken here. I don't even want to give you a chart. But I survived. And I think having a mother who can be critical, it has its downside, but it has its upside. Some people need to be reminded of what they don't do quite right. Sometimes I think she didn't realize that, okay, you've reminded me, that's it, But it's a free country. And even if she criticized when she shouldn't, the thing is, I knew that if things go really, really bad, I could talk to her, and I'm sure I would hear some more criticism, and plenty of it. But on the other hand, she did care. And sometimes it's good to know that somebody cares about you when you're at the bottom of the barrel. Not everybody gets to live a life of luxury. Not everybody has many friends, but sometimes you don't need many friends, and I personally don't care if I live in luxury or not. But having people like her helps you to keep walking, to recover from just about any injury you have. I could look at her, feel like, okay, I could walk another mile. It's not just her, but she played piano so well, I'm still astonished. And allow me to ramble a little bit, but you don't meet many people who can play as well as she could by ear. She could play one song, then another and another, and by the way, she did play some Hebrew folk songs and Jewish hymn songs. If you would give it to her, she might just play it like that, as if she played it already before. I've never seen anybody who could just play piano so well by ear, and she even was better when you gave her sheet music. I would be like, I used to think to myself, if I was half as talented as her, I could be famous. If I, that's a kind of a joke, but that's to give you an idea. I've listened to many pianists on the radio, top 40 hits and that's kind of stuff. And I think she could be up there with Billy Joel and, people like that. She was that talented. So I guess I'll miss that. And other people will miss it. So I'm thankful, and I guess it's my time to.
Yeah, once you start talking about music, we're in for a long haul, so I'm gonna.
But she was, let me just finish with this, she was a special person.
We're gonna sing Amazing Grace. How do you wanna come up and help me? This will be the last song. I had one more thing to share in case we needed to stretch it out more. Maybe I'll tell that at the end. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that
come up and give some instructions, and just want you guys to know, after, he will tell you about going out to Beverly Hills Memorial Gardens. But after that, we want, everyone is welcome to come to Cracker Barrel. We'll be eating just like, we'll have our own private dining room, but we'll be eating all at different tables and stuff. It'll be like a reception, but it'll be just like going out to eat all together as one big family. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody who shared memories and stories today. It really made it a special service. This concludes the services here in the funeral home, and as we said, we are going to be going in procession to Beverly Hills Memorial Gardens. So if you're going to be joining us going to the cemetery, we're going to ask that you all remain seated momentarily, but once we dismiss you and you've had an opportunity to come by and pay your respects, you can turn your headlights and your four-way flashers on, and we'll be going in procession together as a group here momentarily. If any of you are going to be helping us as pallbearers, we're not going to need your assistance here in the funeral home, but once we get stopped at the cemetery, we'll just ask you to come right to the rear of the hearse and we'll give you direction from there. And again, afterwards, regardless of if you're going to be going to the cemetery or not, please join the family at Cracker Barrel to continue to celebrate her life. On behalf of the family, I want to thank you all again for being here and showing your love and support. I know it means a lot. Thank you.